having fun, Andy?
Always. You?
Yeah. So is meeting starting early or at 5:30?
5:30.
Yeah. I better bring another camera. Good, thank you.
Hey, Juan.
Is it Pepe's Pizza?
Yep.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for being here. We typically start each meeting with a 15-minute public comment period. There are a couple of rules. We ask that you stand and state your name and address for the record. Limit your comments to three minutes and speak only once during your comment period. That said, we're going to have hospital discussion, obviously. Does anybody have any public comment about anything other than the hospital?
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Please.
Sure.
Jim Heidi, former mayor of the village of Massena. Two people I'd like to acknowledge. They're retiring effective January 1, and that's town clerk, Georgette Davis. Georgette, fantastic job. Next one would be good friend and associate, John McCauley. John and I attended the same high school together. When they say a Raider, always a Raider. A Crusader, always a Crusader. John and I also worked at General Motors for a number of years. And John, we both were obviously elected officials. John, in my opinion, you always brought a voice of reason to the board on a couple different reasons. First of all, because of your morals, and secondly, because of your background in business, which you need in this type of field, in my opinion. I wish you the best of luck. We didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we weren't supposed to. But I hold the utmost respect for you, and I wish you the best.
Any other non-hospital related public comment?
I was sick that day.
Okay, we typically do 15 minutes, but we're going to extend it to 30 minutes tonight. We've been discussing this for several years. I think everyone's aware of what we're talking about. We had an hour discussion last month at our meeting, so we're not going to go beyond 30 minutes. And I think that's acceptable, and if someone feels differently, I'm sure you'll tell me at some point. So, I'd open the floor to public comment. Again, 3 minutes, state your name and address for the record, please. Who wants to go first? Yes, ma'am.
Assemblywoman Addie Russell from Theresa, New York, representing the 116th Assembly District, which includes the town of Massena. I am here tonight to provide options to the board members here and to potentially hospital board members that are also here this evening. I offer for me to be able to share my experiences with those that are charged with making decisions about the future of Massena Memorial Hospital. I'm also here to help ensure that Massena Memorial Hospital remains a strong and growing healthcare facility in this community. I am here also to specifically make sure that all of you know that I am prepared to sponsor legislation in the state legislature to provide an alternative to either the status quo or privatizing the hospital. I would propose legislation that would turn the hospital into a public benefit corporation, which I believe would address many of the concerns that the hospital administration has. About a year ago, when I met with the administration, I was advised that pension issues were not even in the top 5 of his concerns about the hospital's financial status. I met with administration again not even 2 months ago, and the main topic of the discussion was the need for flexibility because of the change in the healthcare climate. They needed the flexibility to be able to work with other healthcare facilities locally in the region, in the state, because that is the future. That is how reform measures have been enacted at the federal level, and the state is implementing them. And at that time, I offered to provide legislation that could provide the flexibility that the hospital needed and to be able to move forward in as smooth a process as possible. Then, once I made some specific proposals, such as perhaps having a bond cap for the hospital so they wouldn't need to come to the board for every little borrowing need, that is when the pension cost became the pressing issue that was requiring such quick action. Obviously, I think we all know that the pension contribution amounts are coming down. We have weathered the storm of the Great Recession, and pension contributions are dwindling. I also passed legislation with my colleagues in Albany to create new tiers in the pension system, which are projected to benefit anybody, any governments or those that are contributing to public employees for the foreseeable future. And so what I am here to say is that every institution has costs of doing business, like their employees, their salaries, and their benefits. But what we are experiencing in healthcare is something much larger. We cannot ignore that. So I think we do need to look at options like the Public Benefit Corporation, which will allow the hospital to be able to function in the modern healthcare era without disturbing the long bargained for salary and benefits of the employees that make up the hospital. It is a service organization, and I fear that a lengthy 1 to 2 year process will harm the hospital more, and that's also why I'm advocating for a public benefit corporation model. If employees are going to be thrown out of their current benefit system, you're going to see senior officials leave to try to get jobs around the state to finish out their state time, essentially. Those that are not vested will also leave immediately to try to take advantage of the best opportunities now before the market is flooded with other employees. Ultimately, I believe that the hospital's ability to function would be greatly hindered and would put the hospital in a very perilous position and not allow it to be as strong and in a position of growth moving forward. I have worked extensively in this community, and one thing I know is that there is solidarity here, and I also am concerned that if due weight isn't given to the various options out there and the choice is to privatize, that the remaining people who seek care at Massena Memorial Hospital will be deeply upset by how their fellow brothers and sisters in organized labor have been treated. So it is out of immense concern for the future of this facility that I ask the board members not to vote to privatize the hospital right now. We can customize legislation. I already have a boilerplate document drafted, and I would look forward to sitting down with the hospital, town officials, and the workers to customize, to tailor legislation. I think it would be a cost avoidance as well, because I'm not charging it any more than I'm already getting paid. So there won't be any additional lawyers needing to come. There are specialists Already on the payroll in New York State at the Department of Health, at the Assembly and the Senate, that can be brought to bear. I'm not sure you'd have to go through costly assessments of what the assets are worth, all those types of valuations, and bringing in outside counsel to negotiate between the different entities. I really think that a public benefit corporation is an intriguing path forward. It has worked for many healthcare facilities throughout the state in the past, and I am committed to working to have a bright path forward for the hospital, not solely at the expense of the workforce. Thank you.
Assemblywoman, in the event that this board votes to allow the hospital to proceed with the not-for-profit status, and there is a change in status, would you do special legislation to allow a new corporation to buy pension time for folks who are near milestones?
I'm willing to discuss any number of options, but you know, I think we should have those discussions. I think we should be discussing the Public Benefit Corporation, and I don't want to run awry of public comment periods that are usually supposed to be non-responsive.
Okay.
But we can.
Our public comment periods typically are interactive, but.
That's why they go to a half hour, must be.
Sometimes. Any other comments? And again, we've had this discussion several times, so especially new comments would be, or new ideas would be the most appreciated, but certainly any comments welcome as well. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Tracy Tupper. I'm the Massena representative at Massena Memorial, and I'm from Governor. I was deeply concerned at the last meeting on how many questions were left unanswered in regards to what happens to the employees. I heard a whole thing about we'll make some guarantees and we'll, put this in writing and it has to be, agreed to, and we'll make some demands on whoever it is that there will be an affiliation with. I have been told through working through other hospitals in the area that there's already lengthy involved conversations and have been with University of Vermont Medical Center. We met with them speaking about some other hospitals, and they mentioned that they're in the process of affiliating with Massena. Already had the conversations. They didn't say that there was an agreement that the employees, so many employees would be retained, that all of the promises that are supposed to have been made have been any part of the conversation. I am deeply concerned because the process of employee fear and concern has already happened. Our members make between $6 and $8 an hour less than registered nurses around the area. $6 to $8 an hour. It's because they have a good pension. They have negotiated for decades for lesser wages in lieu of a good pension plan. What do you think is going to happen when that's not available? Do you think Massena Memorial is going to come up with $6 to $8 an hour more to put our nurses in the job market? Because I can tell you right, if it doesn't happen, you are going to have a mass exodus of workers. They work here because they care, they are good nurses, and they have foregone wage increases for years because they have a good pension. Without that, you are not going to have the quality nurses that you need for any kind of health care, whether it be an affiliation with Vermont Medical Center, which I have been told has already been in the process. There isn't anything about let's pick who works best for us. It's happening. And we are already in struggles with University of Vermont for not recognizing workers' hard work and what they need for wages and benefits. We're already doing it in Plattsburgh. We're already doing it in Alice High. So guess what's going to happen next? So I have a huge concern about the quality of care that's going to be at Massena Memorial Hospital if this vote goes through. I urge you to vote no for privatization.
I just remind you, the extended applause eats up some of the comment time.
Hey,
So,
Joe, can we do that survey?
sure. Councilman McCauley and I had a brief conversation before we came up. Just wondering, how many people here work for the hospital? Okay, thank you. How many people live in the town of Massena? I'm sorry. Well, that's, okay, that's good, okay. I guess hospital employees, how many of you live in the town of Massena? Okay. All right, good. Yes, sir.
I'm Dr. Richard Kramer. I live at 150, I don't like public speaking. I live at 159 Maple Street, across the street from the hospital. I'm the anesthesiologist that's there now. I came here from Jamestown, New York. I'm a New Yorker all my life. I went to State University of New York in upstate. I came here about Memorial Day and took over the services. I am an independent contractor for a company called Premier Anesthesia, which has gained the anesthesia contract to renovate the surgical services at the Massena Memorial Hospital. I work with a lot of these people. I don't know them well, and I get it. You know, I get what state pensions are and what the people have, what they had to pay for less early on to cash in now. And they reach their retirement 25, 30 years later and feel very strongly and emotionally and very fearfully that the promise that they took many years ago for less pay for a defined benefits plan which is offered to municipal and government workers to finally cash in. What they didn't know is what would happen to the healthcare systems in the 20 and 25 years that has happened since then. The motion before you now to change this charter from that of a municipal hospital to a non-profit hospital comes at a time where I think this is a defining moment for this hospital. I don't have a history in Massena. You know, I'm from New York. I lived in Syracuse and Buffalo, and I worked in the Saranac Lake and out on Long Island, and first time in the North Country here. And I'm aware of the economic catastrophe that has occurred since the loss of the aluminum industry here and how it affects up here in Massena. My wife is from Saranac Lake, used to come up and go to the mall here in St. Lawrence. And I am convinced that unless this hospital has an opportunity to get its funding from either the state or from other hospital and healthcare organizations to make their ends meet, including making pension promises, which our administrator says he's going to do, and I believe he will, that the future, the entire future of Massena Hospital is very much in question. Very much in question. I don't know that this hospital, which had its heyday a while ago and has hired us as kind of a way to increase business, so to speak, to make the capital improvements that is so necessary here because the equipment is old. The hospital can't compete well with other hospitals. They do things differently here that they do elsewhere, because I've been elsewhere and I know that unless there's some kind of change, and that is, you know, quite an emotional part of the people who have dedicated their lives and do a really good job at this hospital. Really good job at this hospital, because I can tell, and I know, I've been doing it for 30 years myself, that I can tell that unless a change like this can occur, the whole future of this hospital, despite a way to do it in a public benefit corporation, this hospital may not survive. I don't see much of a future here for myself unless this happens, and that's the truth the way that I see it.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Gary Van Cannon. I live on 36 Sherwood Drive here in Massena, and you didn't call one category when you were asking where people's interest, and that was as a healthcare consumer. And that's the reason that brought me to this meeting. And I'm hearing a lot of new information. I know you guys have studied this for a couple of years. I'd like to say that I disagree with the anesthesiologist. Messena Hospital, from my perspective as a consumer of health care, is in the midst of its heyday. The quality of the staff, from the intake clerk through the nursing, through the other professional staff, to the billing clerk, is outstanding. And I think that we need to recognize the quality and how we got to that place, and how we, more importantly, stay at that level. And whatever action you take, I hope that you consider the morale of the employees and the high professional standards that they exhibit. And we've just gone over the cliff with Alcoa, and we've been pulled back to the precipitous, and we have an opportunity here, I think, to save an institution in a form that serves the employees and the community. And I hope that that is what action you take this evening. Thank
you. My name is Laura Fair-Schultz, and I live in Potsdam, but I have many friends in Massena. I'm the officer for contingent workers with the UUP, both at the SUNY Potsdam level and on the state level. And I can tell you from education, which is my field, that the corporatization of education is not making things better. I would ask you the question, why would you move to privatize? That's absolutely moving backwards. Every other first world country, Germany, Britain, France, Canada, and I can name a whole host of others, have single-payer health care. Now, obviously that's not here. But they find the idea of privatization preposterous. Why? Because there's a whole profit margin going up. It's not going to the people. A whole chunk of money is going out. So I would say, why would you move backwards? Why would you say, let's privatize, when if you look at studies, privatization does not make the quality of healthcare better. It does not make it more accessible. As it is, we have people paying taxes, and the money is trickling up, not coming down, not coming back to the community. I respectfully would say, if you want to vote for privatization, why don't you also vote to restore rotary phones in Massena? And I mean that.
Do you understand that we're voting on this to be a private, not-for-profit?
I somewhat, but I think...
Because when you say that the money is going to go somewhere else, that's not true.
Okay.
Not with private, not-for-profit. It has to be, whatever profit is made in a private, not-for-profit must be invested back in the business.
Must be invested.
It doesn't go to dividends and things like that.
With all due respect, though, a lot of politicians today are influenced by lobbyists who work for companies who can lobby for the money to go wherever it wants to. I may not know all the specifics of this, but I get your point.
Okay, and the other question I've got of you, and I'm sorry I don't want to pick
Laura.
on you. You live in Potsdam.
I live in Potsdam.
Would you tell me what hospital you receive your health care from?
Kent.
You do know that Kent Potsdam is a private, not-for-profit hospital?
Oh, I do know that.
Okay.
I have lived in Canada and I've lived in Germany. And let me tell you something, there's a difference. There's a difference when money is held to a higher standard to come back to the people, and that's my point.
Do you have evidence that the care is not good at Kent Potsdam Hospital?
Actually, I do. I know some
Okay.
people who work there, and they complain about.
No, not the people that work there, the people that use the service.
I use the service. I am friends with a lot of people in Canton, in
Well,
Potsdam.
the data shows that the Kent Potsdam Hospital has shown a lot of growth over the last 10 years.
Growth in what way?
In number of people being served there, and number of doctors that reside there, most statistics. So all I'm saying is,
But
all I'm trying to
that
say is
doesn't measure
that,
qualitative
I
things.
understand, but we talk a lot of anecdotal stuff.
Right.
And anecdotally, Kent Potsdam Hospital is in a lot better shape than we are. And all I'm saying is, and most people are making statements, and we can take it for what they're worth, okay? That Kent Potsdam is where you live, that's where you get service. It is a private, not-for-profit hospital, which is exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
And I just want people to understand
Well-
that they've shown growth. And they also, which a lot of people didn't know until, I didn't know until last year, they used to have a defined benefit pension plan in Kent Potsdam Hospital. And they negotiated to a defined contribution back 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Right. But
And again,
Well, why don't we bring a bunch of
anecdotally,
people
that
from-
growth has happened since that time. I'm not
Yeah,
saying that's the cause.
growth.
I'm not saying that's the
Growth.
cause. Well,
why don't we bring a bunch of people from Canton Potsdam to talk to you about
Well,
the
I've
effects?
talked
Because
to
there's
lots of
quite a
them.
bit of, well, I've talked to quite a few people who have a lot of problems with the hospital, a lot of nurses. I have a friend who works in anesthesia as well, and he incidentally came from New York City, came here to work, and they could write you a whole book
well,
on problems with
I understand.
the Canton
And
Potsdam.
our quality assurance people at the hospital could show you the same ones, same type of information you took. They could, Columbia Presbyterian, #1 hospital in the world, could probably pull out a folder with a lot of different complaints, different situations that have arisen that made people upset. And again, a lot of it's anecdotal stuff. All I'm saying is, if you just look at pure numbers, they have served more patients over the last 10 years than what they used to.
But have they served them well?
Well, the data doesn't say that it hasn't.
But the
I
data
haven't-
doesn't say
I
that
haven't
it
seen
has.
any-
I don't know if the
No, I-
qualifier
I-
you're using is justified.
Yeah, I don't.
We're kinda getting into
Public
weeds.
comment, or is this
Let's-
like
let's-
question?
Let's go back, let's go back for some, lady in the back has her hand up.
My name is Beth Neto. I live here in the town of Massena. I also work at the hospital. I hear you with the numbers growing in Canton Potsdam, but that does not mean that the quality of care is growing. I work in the clinics at the hospitals. We see people that come from Canton, Potsdam area to Massena to receive their quality of care. And I would be worried that that quality of care is going to go down.
Other comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Lauren Fountain. I live on 227 East Hatfield Street here in Massena, New York. It's a very emotional issue, and I don't think anyone in here wants to see the Massena Hospital close. That would be the worst possible outcome. But it is an emotional time because we have to understand these employees will lose if we privatize. I think there's no doubt about that. The public pension is much better, and they have taken pay freezes for years to hold on to that public pension. Now, that's not going to do them any good if we don't have a hospital. So it's a very tough decision to make. Mrs. Russell has offered you an option today to take a look at a public benefit corporation. A great option. Why not give her 6 months to see if we can get this done? And if we can't, we can have this conversation again in 6 months. I know that you've been looking at this for a few years, but the employees do feel like this was rushed. We had a new hospital manager. They did not see this coming. I've spoken to several of them, and it may be that privatization is the way to go, but why not give Mrs. Russell the chance, give her 6 months to do it? Thank you.
I'm Joe McCauley. I was at the last meeting that you had, and the administrator from the hospital made the comment to the town board that soon next year, he's gonna come to you people, no matter what happens, and ask for several $1 million in bonding authority, so that, now after listening to this doctor, the anesthesiologist, to improve particularly outdated equipment at the hospital. I think the figure he used was like almost $6 million, if I remember correctly.
20.
Okay? To
20.
Well, I don't know what it was, but 6 million's in my head. Okay. If we don't make any changes, all right, and the hospital makes no money next year, and you authorize the hospital to float $10 million in bonds, and they make no money to make the payments on those bonds, who's going to pay the payment on that bond? The taxpayers. Taxpayers are. And that's what you guys, that's your responsibility. Okay? All you ever hear out of people's mouths, don't raise the taxes. I come to village board meetings, I come to town board meetings, I go to school board meetings, and that's all I hear. Our school board, to keep our taxes down in the last 3 years, have done away with 75 jobs. Where was the outpouring of sympathy for those people? 75 people, professional teachers, down the road, keep our taxes down. This is a way to keep our taxes from not going up, my understanding, if I'm understanding this whole situation correctly. Because somebody's going to pay those bonds back. If the hospital doesn't have the money to do it, it's going to be us. It's going to be us. And there's a lot more of us with this color hair than light colored hair in this town.
So I've heard different numbers, $20 million. I've heard $15 million was applied for. I'm not sure where the $20 million would come from if you're affiliated with another hospital. Are they going to give you $20 million? Yeah, I'm asking you.
Mr. Walvin, I'm the hospital administrator, the CEO. So what was stated about last month is correct. I did say that we need, over the next several years, we need up to $20 million. And a portion of that is funded depreciation, which runs $2.75 million a year. That's the expense that we record for replacement of equipment, outdated equipment. So just every year, to replace outdated equipment, we need $2.75 million. We obviously have other projects we'd like to do, like expand our emergency room, which is too small for the volume we're handling. We've estimated that project at approximately $6.2 million. We want to modernize some of our inpatient rooms, which are outdated and don't meet the current standards for care of inpatients. We have a preliminary estimate on that of about $2.8 million. So when you add it all up, it's significant dollars. So as was stated, we need money to reinvest into the building, into programs, into facilities, and it's likely if we stay in our present mode, ownership by the town, that I will be here in the first several months of the year asking for a bond issue somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe $5 to $10 million. I don't know exactly how much. And that's just what's needed to get us through the next year or 2 years. And that kind of expense is going to come up every so often. So over the next 5 years, we need $20 million. Now, to give you an idea how serious we are about it, we did just submit, New York State had a grant application process called Essential Providers, and we did submit an application to the state and the total of that application is $21.2 million. And that includes all the items I just mentioned to you. In addition, it includes $6.1 million to upgrade our hospital information system to a state-of-the-art system that will improve care throughout our entire organization. So in submitting that application, one of the first questions in the application was, which hospital are you affiliated with? That is a requirement. You have to demonstrate you're affiliated with somebody in order to get the funds. Further in the application, the question comes up, where are you affiliated and do you have a shared governance structure? So clearly the state of New York, in the pools of money that they have available and are willing to distribute to hospitals like Massena Memorial and others, is interested in making sure that there are affiliations that make sense. And that is going to be a continuing trend as we go on into the future. And that is an important aspect of why we believe converting to a nonprofit hospital, which is subject to the nonprofit statutes in New York State, is important for us because it will allow us to affiliate with other hospitals, maybe in our region, maybe outside of our region, who may have the ability to provide us the kind of financial help that we're going to need to continue to provide quality medical care and hospital services in this community, as the staff and professionals have done for years and years and years.
My understanding is the Public Benefit Corporation will also allow you to affiliate.
The Public Benefit Corporation legislation that we have reviewed, specifically Erie County Medical Center and Westchester County Medical Center, I would tell you, first off, both of those institutions are 10 to 15 times larger than Massena Memorial Hospital. They are huge organizations. And they are, first and foremost, the clinical affiliates of medical schools. In Erie County's case, they are an affiliate of SUNY Upstate Buffalo Medical School, and in Westchester County Medical Center, they're an affiliate of New York Medical College. And they went into a public benefit corporation for a whole bunch of reasons. One of them is that they could have a meaningful affiliation with a medical school, which is a private corporation. Okay. In that legislation, the counties fund the debt for both of those institutions. I'd also point out that those institutions are much larger, and really the other reason they went into it, amongst several, is they wanted to go out and establish relationships with suburban hospitals so that they could basically assure themselves of referrals from hospitals surrounding Westchester or Buffalo. Another sort of interesting fact about the Erie County Public Benefit Corporation, part of that legislation, and I understand legislation can vary from location to location, the county has agreed to pay for the uninsured charity care costs of patients who are treated at Erie County Medical Center. If that were, as an example, included in any proposed legislation for our situation, that would amount to about $1.5 million. So we do not believe the Public Benefit Corporation model solves the problems that we're talking about, and we don't believe it's the right course. We believe the right course is to move to a nonprofit institution, which is governed by the nonprofit statutes, which will allow us the flexibility to have the kind of affiliations that we need in order to provide funding from some other source than the town of Massena, and as previously stated, potentially the town of Massena taxpayers. We get no subsidy now from the town of Massena. And the hospital's been very prudent with its spending, but it can't go on like this much longer.
I have legislation right here, I've read it. Legislation for Massena Hospital can be written any way we want. Is that correct? Somebody want to wrestle?
Yes, and I haven't done a historical review of the Erie County legislation, but that may have been a maintenance of effort scenario in which they agreed to continue to provide funding historically they had. but there's nothing to say that, that Massena would have to agree to any of that at all. Although, you know, we might want to look at other public organizations like the Power Authority, maybe ask them to contribute for a couple of years. So. This is not the first time that's been suggested.
Mark the records that I reviewed.
Where would that money come from?
Oh, I apologize for even bringing that in, but there's
People's bills, that's
there
where that
were some
comes from.
studies done, and I have proposed that, and to ensure that there are adequate emergency services for the workers out at the facilities that are on the wall behind you, which is potentially one of the driving factors of why we had such development here, because we had a public hospital that was committed to serving the public, and all of the workers that came to build the great blocks and dams. It's a little bit editorial, but they have done a study and are looking at ways that they can ensure that there is adequate emergency services in this community, and I have argued that the hospital should ensure that the hospital gets a significant portion of that. Otherwise, we might as well just fly a helicopter and fly people to Syracuse or Vermont. So it has been suggested that the hospital would be a place where the Power Authority might deem that it would be a public good to ensure that they have a robust hospital and emergency department, so that, God forbid, there should be an accident out there, that there would be services here to take care of men and women who are engaged in very dangerous work.
I want to ask a question about public benefit for whoever can answer. I understand the Public Benefit Corporation would provide flexibility for affiliations and stuff, because we looked at it about 15 years ago. The public benefit, though, would not remove the liability of any debt. That or funding would still stay with the town of Massena, correct? Because it would still be municipal.
I think we'd have to look at that, but I think there are mechanisms to transfer the debt.
Where would it
Certainly
go?
new debt going to the corporation, but certainly new debt moving forward would not have to have ties to the town. It would be the corporation.
Is there no public benefit corporation that has that today?
That's the whole, really the point, is to separate the town and the oversight and having to do that. So I will get the answers for you.
I think you need to, because
Yes.
in the past.
Which is why I'm asking for
Right.
time, so we can get
In
those
the
answers
past,
to you.
It did provide some flexibility, but the hospital would have always had to come to the town for approval of bonding and those types of things, because they had no other source of getting those funds.
Well, they would be their own corporation. Whether they came to the town to ask for money would be one thing, but I think we can look at putting provisions in to address your concerns.
I think if we look at Clifton Fine, Star Lake Hospital, they went public benefit route initially when they went from a municipal hospital, and then are now private, not-for-profit, because for some reason that model didn't work for them.
I'm not sure, did they take that interim step, or did they go back
Yes.
to not-for-profit?
I'm pretty sure they took
They were
their own
public
step.
benefit.
I believe they were. And I think if you also look at Lowville, Lewis County General Hospital, they've chosen not to go that route thus far, which I found interesting. And I know they owe the county about $8 million, and the county wants the money back. And they're trying to figure out how they're gonna do that. So,
Well, I think these issues that's the whole point of me being here, is to say, let's figure out the path forward, get the answers to these questions, and if the town can, absolve itself of liability moving forward and the flexibility that a public benefit corporation allows, foster some affiliation agreements and some folks outside of the region coming and making investments here that don't cost the taxpayers any money, I think that's worth looking into.
Do I get equal time?
It's his rules.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. There currently is no public benefit corporation we're aware of.
yeah, so I'm gonna allow 2 more comments, and then we're gonna move on. Yes, sir.
Chuck Raytide, 14 Sherwood Drive, former councilman. got a long history with the Massena Memorial Hospital. As Joe and the new executive officer pointed out, if you're dealing with a $6 million outlay of funds that this town has to pick up, Nancy informed me while I was on the board that $500,000 is $1 on everybody in this community's tax rate. Now you take that to Alcoa and you see what will happen. We don't have General Motors with us anymore. We don't have Reynolds. And Alcoa, those three hospitals, many years ago, Albert, you were on the board, I think I came on later, wanted to take our hospital down from the Department of Health. Those three companies saved the hospital. They told them, hey, if you take this hospital and shut it down, we're out of here. But the other reason I want to talk is these guys got a tough decision. I'm glad I'm retired, gentlemen. But if you look at the history of it, and I said it when I was a councilman. Over the years, I was a liaison to the hospital. It goes back to Fran's on here and all that stuff that went on there. Over the years, the state of New York and the federal government have dropped the funding, dropped the funding, dropped the funding. Okay? And as we all know, our health care, our retirement benefits because of the recession, and all the other costs have gone up and up and up. And they finally met. We were a very healthy hospital. When I was the liaison there, we were ready to build new private rooms. And I don't know if they fixed the boiler over here or not. I know when I was there, it was 50 years old, and I don't know if it's been fixed, and it needs to be fixed. If not, it's my age. I'm 63. So, anyways, my point is this. This is what's happened, and I empathize with every single one of you people in regards to the retirement. But you've got the funding going down. You got this going up, and I'm speaking for the taxpayers as when I was on that board. You go out and tell the taxpayers they're going to have to jump their rates $1 for $500,000. The chief executive officer says he's going to possibly come in for $6 million. That's a chunk of money. And Mrs. Russell, maybe you can get the money, but I would think I've been on that side and we've fought for stuff over the years. And dealing with the power authority, I was here when the relicensing was going on, and that's extremely difficult. And I challenge you, Mrs. Russell. There's another thing that you can do to help every one of these union members here. You can get down to Albany, and you can put in some legislation to help these guys if they go privatize, nonprofit, to get their retirement, say, whatever number you come up with. I challenge you, I challenge Mr. Griffo and the rest of the state legislators up here.
I think the town would have to pay for that, though. The town would have to pay that expense of buying their time. So that would be something that the town would have to
Or the hospital.
come up with.
Or the hospital.
So that would, there's no cost savings there. So, I mean, that's why I'd like to have the opportunity to discuss these issues because, you know, that could be done, but that would be, you're gonna be farther ahead by privatizing and having to make that big lump sum payment. Then you're gonna have to defer the upgrades at the hospital that I think we all would like to see, so.
Anyways, these gentlemen have a very difficult decision. I personally, if I was sitting on that board, want that hospital to survive. And I want you guys to have your pensions. And it isn't a very good world. I sat with my apprentices, I teach class down at BOCES, and they've been through hell, back, and still going through because of what's going on with Alcoa. And you guys are going to have a difficult time too, and I empathize with that. Well, let's look at the bottom line. Number one, we got to look at our taxpayers, and number two, we got to keep that hospital. And what I'm hearing, and I want to say something about public benefit. John and I think, were the liaisons when we went public, tried to go public benefit. We got stopped cold and all.
Say, we want our hospital to fail. We want to keep our jobs. We want the hospital to be around for the long term. Most of us are residents here, have own homes here. I personally live in Norfolk. But please look into other avenues. Not just for our pensions. The taxpayers don't care about our pensions. We do, but they don't. There are other options out there that can give the hospitals what they want. The flexibility to be able to affiliate. It's right here. We have the person here. Tom DiNapoli's also told you in person. Try Public Benefit Corporation. Talk to Fran Turner. And Rick's our political action guy for CSCA. He's here. He works with Fran Turner, who works right in Albany. it can be done. It can be done quicker than we can privatize. So we can affiliate with other hospitals. We're taking a risk. If we privatize today, we're taking that risk of maybe somebody will come along and give us this 20 million, it was 25 million last month, plus the 5 million that we owe the town, plus the assessment value of the hospital. We're getting up there almost $50 million that some other facility might invest in us. If we go public benefit corporation, we can still affiliate, we can still be here for the long term. I think it's worth checking out and trying. 6 months. I mean, we've saved money apparently because we've cut jobs and haven't had jobs at the hospital. Why don't we have another 6 months to see how our billing process will improve? It's not the biller's fault, it's the process to get to the insurance companies. Give it some time.
So there's someone here from CSEA Beyond locally? And you will support in Albany a Public Benefit Corporation legislation?
My name is Rick Nerald. I drove up here from Syracuse, and luckily the snow belt won't hit me on the way back. But I'm the legislative coordinator for CSEA, and we stand ready, willing, and able to work with the Assemblywoman, to work with the CEO of your hospital, to work with you, the town board, anyone. We can't talk about 15 years ago.
Will you support Public Benefit Corporation?
That's 15 years ago. We will work to support a public benefit corporation if it meets the needs of all of us. It's called working together.
I understand that.
All right? So if we can't all work together to come up with the kind of PBC that we're comfortable with, none of us could support it, right? So instead, let's work together. Let's not go on what anybody did 15 years ago. Let's go on where we stand right now. Where we stand right now is we're ready, willing, and able to support and to work cooperatively with all interested parties to maintain this hospital the way it should be for everyone. So to everyone's best interest, be it the town, be it taxpayers, and you know, many of our members, they may have pensions and they may get paid from the hospital, but they're taxpayers also. For everyone to be comfortable with and to feel that we're doing the right thing. That's all we want to do. That's all we want to do. We want to work cooperatively to get to where we need to get to, and that's what legislation is all about.
Would that include special legislation to buy back pension time, as I asked?
Well, it wouldn't be necessary.
3 years ago, I asked the CSA to look into that.
It wouldn't be necessary. You know, a promise can't be made. I heard earlier someone said something about a promise being made about pension. Well, that promise can be made if it's a public benefit corporation, because these folks would remain in the pension system, so the pension would remain intact. That promise cannot be made if we go not-for-profit, because now you're out of the public retirement system. There's nothing that any of us can do about that.
But we could have special legislation to buy back time, for people at 23 years to get to 25, people at 28 to get to 30, people at 18. It's happened before, right?
Well, that's something it's definitely something that can be looked at, but as the Assemblywoman said, that's also a cost.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
If we're trying to talk about, let's be realistic, and let's not add on cost, you know, let's not rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, let's take a little time here down and really look at, because we can tailor. You know, look, I'm going to stand here and say, yeah, I don't care what any of the other PBCs, what their legislation says, because they're not Massena, New York. For Massena, New York, we're going to sit and we're going to look and we'll all work together and we'll say, what is it that works for Massena, New York? I don't care what works for Erie County. I don't care what works for Rochester or Buffalo. What's good for Massena, New York? What's good for the North Country? What is going to work here? And that's what crafting legislation, that's what it's all about. That's what I've been doing it for over 35 years. And that's the bottom line is, cooler heads prevail. We set and we put together legislation that meets our needs. We don't take somebody else's legislation, because that may not meet our needs. We can use it as a boilerplate, and we can use it to work off of, but we're going to look at what it is we need, and we're going to write into that legislation, and if it's concerns about bonding, if it's concerns about debt, if it's concerns about pensions and all these different things, all of that stuff, who's going to be on this board, right? That's all going to get written into the legislation as to who's going to serve on this PBC board. You know, I'm going to assume You know, my recommendation would be that at least several members of the town board serve on that board. Obviously, some folks from the hospital. And perhaps there's others that I'm not thinking of that would make sense to, you know, we may want a medical professional on that board. We may want, although I may disagree respectfully with our one medical professional that's here tonight, but he did go to Upstate Medical Center where I used to work, so that's fine. But, you know, that's all stuff that we have to look at and that we decide. We can tailor this to meet everybody's needs, I believe. And I think with all of us supporting it, we can get there. I think we can do it. I have no doubt about it. I've done this for a long time.
CSEA in Massena contributed quotes to my press release yesterday stating that I would be moving forward with this, and their quotes were supportive of moving forward with exploring public benefit corporation status. So it would be on a fool's errand if I hadn't gotten my ducks in a row in that regard before I made that statement. But I will be pushing for it.
Thank you. Okay.
Before we move on, I just want to say one last thing.
Well, we're gonna wrap up the public comment and the board can comment, okay?
All right.
So, thank you all for your time and your comments, we appreciate that. In order for us to have further discussion, we could have a resolution that's been prepared for us by our attorney. Does anybody want to move the resolution and then we'll have discussion?
I'll move the resolution.
Okay,
You want me to read the resolution?
that would be good. I don't know if everyone's heard it, so.
Yeah, because most of you people haven't seen this probably, so I'll go ahead and read it. The board has. Resolution. Whereas the Massena Memorial Hospital, MMH, has been operated as a municipal hospital by the town of Massena pursuant to the law of the state of New York. And whereas the nature of healthcare has undergone significant changes in recent years and is anticipated to continue its rapid evolution. And whereas MMH has provided healthcare in the Massena community since 1942 with great skill, care, and devotion. And whereas the employees of MMH have been dedicated to caring for their friends and neighbors since 1942 and desire to continue to do so in the most effective and efficient manner available to them. And whereas there has been ongoing discussion for several years concerning the conversion of MMH from a municipal hospital to a New York not-for-profit hospital, new MMH or NMMH, and a 501c3 tax-exempt entity under the Internal Revenue Code, the conversion. And whereas the change in healthcare in recent years has created a need for flexibility not afforded to the municipal hospital, but that would be available in a not-for-profit structure, including such things as a captive professional corporation for physicians to aid in recruitment, joint ventures with physicians, participation in population health and value-based payment programs to physicians and hospitals, the opportunity to enter into hospital affiliations which are being strongly urged by the New York State Department of Health to ensure the long-term viability of institutions like MMH, and the continuation of the high quality of care provided in their communities. And whereas conversion would create an opportunity to have access to capital, which is an ongoing concern due to the unfunded depreciation accounts, which will require $10 million in the next few years, as well as additional programs, development of services, all of which would become liabilities of the town. And whereas the MMH Board of Directors believes that the conversion creates the only vehicle for opportunities to stabilize and increase employment at MMH and MMH going forward, and whereas MMH and MMH is committed to only under affiliations which will provide an increased medical provider presence in the community, this will likely increase other employment as well, and for capital assistance for the projects needed at new MMH. And whereas MMH agrees to use its best efforts not to decrease overall employment at MMH from current level of 345 for a period of 3 years, and strongly believes that those numbers will grow during that period, assuming the conversion and affiliation is entered into. And whereas the conversion would be in the best interest of the Massena community, healthcare in the region, as well as the employees of MMH. And whereas it is the desire of the town and the board of MMH to move forward with the investigation of the conversion process believing that it is in the collective best interest of the community. Be it therefore resolved that the town board of the town of Massena does hereby authorize the board of managers of Massena Memorial Hospital to begin the process to convert to a not-for-profit hospital to be formed to serve the town of Massena and the surrounding communities subject to the town entering into an agreement with NMMH that satisfies the contingency contained in this resolution and such other and further contingencies as the town board may reasonably discover and require prior to the conversion. Be it further resolved, the new hospital entity shall be known as Massena Memorial Hospital and will adopt existing union agreements to the extent legally possible or negotiate with other unions to ensure the existence of a collective bargaining agreement is effective on the date of conversion. Be it further resolved, MMH and NMMH shall provide a successor defined contribution pension plan as well as a negotiated bridge payment for the most effective participants of the New York State Employee Retirement Plan. Be it further resolved that MMH may file a certificate of need application as soon as practicable with the New York State Department of Health, as it believes that it is the most expeditious methodology for conversion to become effective. Be it further resolved, MMH would, as a condition of the transfer of town assets, have blank sitting members of the town board as a member of its new board of directors. Be it further resolved that should the town agree to transfer its assets to NMMH, any such transfer of town assets is contingent upon the town being satisfied that the town has been adequately compensated for the town's assets, that all town debt related to the NMH has been satisfied, or that the NMMH has developed a plan for the satisfaction of MMH debt without requiring contributions from the taxpayers of the town. Be it further resolved that the town's approval hereunder is contingent upon NMMH agreeing to use its best efforts to maintain overall employment at NMMH at its current level of $345 for a period of 3 years, and to grow its employment levels during that period, assuming the conversion and affiliation is entered into with another healthcare entity.
I'd like to comment on one of the paragraphs, and I think, Doctor, it goes back to part of your
Can we use that for a second, for discussion? Anyone want to second this? You want to second that? Okay, very good. Now we can have.
Are we saying for discussion, or are we?
Yeah, it's just the second for discussion.
For discussion.
It has to be seconded before we can have discussion, so.
Well,
technically.
is our purpose to discuss this, because it says it's for discussion, and there isn't a resolution to accept this resolution. There's nothing, it says discussion, but it doesn't say resolution in our agenda.
Are you moving it for a vote, John?
I am moving it for a vote.
Are you seconding it for a vote, Albert?
I was getting to discuss it.
Okay, I'll second it for a vote, and we can have the discussion.
Okay, so we can discuss now?
Yeah.
Going back in the board of MMH to move forward with investigation of the conversion process, believing that it is in the collective best interest of the community. Point that hasn't come up here that concerns me greatly is the retention, first the recruitment and the retention of physicians and other key people. Within the last 2 months, we have lost 3 physicians. 3 physicians have left. Our gastroenterologist, who is the only one we have, has gone to Canton Potsdam and comes to Massena on a need basis. I believe that's 2 days a week. So I think we have to keep this in mind, that the retention and the recruitment of physicians is contingent on what we do tonight.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have some corrections, I think. One portion that calls for a current level of 345. Shouldn't that say 345 full-time equivalent employees?
Yeah, absolutely.
And presently, the good with
Do you have a problem with amending it, John, for?
No, I think that's true.
345 FTEs, okay.
That's mentioned twice in here, actually, like the last paragraph.
So both of them should be, and the resolve is what's important, but, so put it definitely full-time equivalents will be added to the last resolve. I have one other addition I'd like to, John, and that is, if you're willing, and that is the third to the last resolve about the numbers of sitting board members the town board will have. I think that should be 2 town board members. Should sit on the new hospital board if there is one.
That was left blank, I didn't know if it was
Right,
intentional.
and I'm saying, it was left blank for us to decide, Sam, so I'm suggesting it be 2.
Okay.
And I'm offering that as an amendment to your resolution, John.
I would place that as into my resolution.
So
that
2
we
is
would
okay,
ask for
right, so
two sitting town board members to be member of the new board.
I have a problem with that, actually. What's the reasoning for a town board member to be on that board?
to ensure that there is still health care provided to the community.
Okay, so those 2 members are gonna go to the hospital board meetings and discuss what's going on with this private hospital. They're not under public open law, so they can't come back to the town board and say, hey, this is what's going on. It's gonna be a separate entity, it's gonna be a private hospital. So my suggestion is we have the whole entire board on that hospital board.
So there would be,
That's the only way you can
every time the
communicate
new
back.
board meets, there'd be a quorum of the entire hospital, the town board, there'd be a public meeting.
That's what
Pardon me?
That's what you're suggesting? So you're
That's the only way
suggesting
the town can communicate. It's gonna be a private hospital.
That's not, there's not.
2 board members can't go to that hospital board,
Why can't they?
communicate, and come back to the town board.
Why can't they?
Why? It's a private entity.
So the
It's not open- it's not,
private entity can't bind them from not knocking outside.
Well, they certainly can. A
Unless
private
they-
corporation,
Unless they sign a non-disclosure,
I believe they
I
can.
don't know how they could bind it, the two
Sure they can.
I'm not talking about.
Sure they can.
I don't see that.
My thought about having somebody on the town board would be as consulting purposes only, just like all other town board members or hospital board members are. We put people on the hospital board for their ability to take in information, analyze data, make recommendations based on those types of things, and the requirements of those 2 town board members would be exactly the same as far as, I'm saying it isn't there to report back to the town board. It's there as a consulting position, just like any other town board member or hospital board member would be.
Do we not have
Because it's just what you
conversations?
said.
We have conversations about the hospital, we have,
Yes, we do, but just as you said, is if it becomes a private, not-for-profit hospital, the town board should not have influence over that, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with having influence, I think you should have influence, not influence.
They'll have input as any other hospital board member would have.
so those board members will not be able to communicate with the town board. There's a possibility of it, a great
Yes.
possibility of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly. So how are those
Just
2
like
representatives
just
gonna?
like the board members at Canton Potsdam Hospital don't go to the town board meeting.
Sure they
in
don't, because they're a
Potsdam.
private hospital.
Right.
We have a public hospital.
Right, not if we approve this, we don't. So if we approve this,
So if you approve that, you have a private hospital.
you'll have a private,
Therefore,
not-for-profit hospital.
the members of this board, cannot communicate, or possibly cannot communicate with the town of Massena. And the purpose for those board members to be on there is to look out the best interest of the town of Massena.
I don't know if that's the purpose,
That's not, no.
Sure it is. What's the other purpose to be on the town board?
Just what I said.
Go overwatch it, right?
Just what I
Go
said,
oversee
to
it.
be, no.
have influence.
Well, what does the board do? What does, excuse me, what does the hospital board do?
The hospital board manages budgets, plans for the future,
Sets policies.
sets policy.
They oversee the hospital.
Right.
Exactly.
It'll be a private business, just like any other private business in Massena, like Frenchie's is a corporation. And he doesn't have people from reporting back to the community.
Exactly, it's a private company.
Right.
There's no such thing as nonprofit privatization. It doesn't exist. There will be a price to be paid. They're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart.
I'm sorry, you already had a chance to comment, okay? This is more discussion time.
Okay, so
But
what
that's-
we would need to, I think, my opinion, is Joe recommended 2 or 0, not 2 or 5,
No.
in my opinion.
5 makes no sense, in my opinion, because it makes every meeting.
Because it makes it municipal.
Sure. It opens every meeting they have, and.
It makes it municipal, which then means a lot of the things that they asking for as far as negotiating contracts and those types of things for better services, lower costs and all that stuff, now won't be able to be done because it'll be a public meeting.
From a competitive standpoint, you don't see Governor or Ogdensburg or Canton, Potsdam, or Plattsburgh, or Watertown discussing their business.
Sure they don't, they're private.
And this.
I know, Stan, what don't you understand? That's what this is. It's a resolution to go private.
My understanding, the purpose is to have board members on the hospital board to oversee it.
That's your understanding. That's not what this says.
That's what the hospital board does.
No, what I'm saying is.
They're gonna be members of the board, right?
Yeah, but they're gonna be members of the board, just like all other board members. They won't be any different than any other board member.
We can certainly say 2 non-voting members if you want, I guess, I don't know.
I don't know what the problem is, but it's.
Okay, Sam, did you have other things you wanted to comment about?
I sure do.
Okay.
Resolve, the new hospital entity shall be known as Massena Memorial Hospital and will adopt existing union agreements to the extent legally possible, or negotiate with other unions to ensure the existence of a collective bargaining agreement is in effect on the date of conversion, be it further. With this here, you have 2 expired contracts. Right now, they're covered under the tri-borough amendment of the Taylor Law, so the contracts continue. If the contracts that they don't have, which are going to be transferred, will no longer be existing contracts. And the other part of the statement says, we'll negotiate with other unions. Who's the other unions?
They're still in place, right? Those contracts are still in place.
They're in place. No, they're actually expired. They're in place because the tri-borough. They're in place because the tri-borough amendment of the Taylor Law.
Right. So the terms of the old contract are still in place until the new contract's negotiated.
Because they're a public hospital.
Under the tri-borough law.
Because they're a public hospital.
Right. So a not-for-profit will be inheriting the terms of that earlier contract.
No, the contract's expired.
No. Well, legally that contract is still in place, Sam, you just said it.
It is, because they're a public hospital, and it's under the tri-borough amendment of the Taylor Law.
And I think that could be included in the transfer agreement.
No, it can't.
Legally cannot.
So that needs some discussion. And the other question I had on that was, or possibly negotiate with other unions. Who are the other unions are going to negotiate with?
Maybe CSCA doesn't want to represent a private, not-for-profit.
So basically, when the hospital goes private, you're going to wipe out the unions, and they have to pick another union.
Does it say we're going to wipe out the unions?
I don't know. You're saying negotiate with other unions.
Maybe there's another union that steps in. I don't know. Maybe the employees decide to go to another union. I don't know. I think that's what the other is for. At least open that option that there may be other unions involved.
So there's no.
And there could be some very beneficial things when you think that you're not part of the tri-borough agreement anymore.
That's for sure.
Oh yeah, you can strike.
You might not. A lot of private unions in this country that don't belong, aren't under PERB and tri-borough agreements and stuff like that. You sit next to several of them that have worked in private companies that have had a lot of advantages, they feel have had advantages too. You can go back and forth on that. I'm sure the people that think they're under the tri-borough agreement think that that's a good thing. And there are people that have been under the National Labor Relations Board that think that's a good thing. So it could go either way, is my only point.
Anything else, Sam?
Sure. I would like, bridge payment has been mentioned before. It was in the first slideshow, which I asked for 3 times. I haven't received yet. And now it's not in the slideshow. I'm not sure what the bridge payment is. Can we have a description of that, basically, what the bridge payment's going to be, or I guess it'll be permit a little bit.
Address that, Bob?
And the resolution says we are committed, the board is committed to making a bridge payment. That would be a negotiated bridge payment with whatever labor unions exist. We've done a preliminary analysis about the most affected employees. But obviously that's our analysis, and we would want to sit down with the labor unions and discuss discuss their ideas as to what the bridge payments ought to be, so we come to a mutually agreeable method of bridging the most affected group of employees. So that's what that's about. If I might just step back a minute. That previous language is not artful. We're not trying to avoid labor contracts. That language was written with the specific intent that we would accept the existing agreements and the existing labor unions as long as the law allows us to. So there's some provision in the law that doesn't allow us to. We will negotiate new agreements with whatever labor organizations represent our staff. There's no art to that language. We're not trying to avoid labor agreements.
Yes, you are.
Yes,
Yep.
you are.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, you are. Not now, but in the future.
Anything else? Then?
Sure. Here is, let me see, the town needs to be satisfied of its and compensated for its assets. And that seems like the only out in this contract. Is that correct or not? Or, I mean, is there, we go back to other things if,
Let me defer to Eric on that. It's my understanding that this resolution merely sets the ball rolling, and that there will be no formal transfer until we have a transfer agreement that will be negotiated and executed between the town of Massena and a not-for-profit corporation.
Joe, this was definitely designed so that it was to start the process, but it's by no means definitive. In fact, the first resolved paragraph talks about the satisfying the contingencies of this resolution, along with whatever other contingency the town reasonably comes up with during the course of the conversion process, right? And it was left specifically that way so that you have an opportunity, you know, to study and to go through the process in a way that made the most sense for everybody.
Yeah, this is not a contract.
This
is
not
a
a
resolution.
so in short term, if the transfer agreement doesn't work to our liking in any manner, it can be rejected.
Yes.
Just for clarification. The other thing is the assets that the town has, including all the hospital buildings, equipment, and so forth. That needs an appraisal so we know what it's worth. And I think that should be done more so by someone hired by the town, but obviously we're not going to pay for it.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, so, well, we don't have the money to pay for it, you have more money we want. But, so I think that needs to be added, that there is an assessment of all the assets. So we know where we're going, you know, forward with this, whether that will be a part of the transfer agreement, or should that be part of this agreement?
Any such transfer of town assets is contingent upon the town being satisfied that the town has been adequately compensated for the town's assets.
Okay, now how are we going to determine the value of those assets?
Well, I assume through an appraisal.
Okay, who's going to hire the appraisal? Appraiser?
We can do that if you want, I don't care.
So we're going to add that to this
And they can pay for
resolution,
that.
or are you going to change the resolution to add that?
To say that an appraisal, the appraiser of the town will hire us? That's what you want to add?
Yeah.
Joe,
John, how
I
do you feel
recommend
about it?
against that.
Okay.
Just because who's gonna pay for it is, I think, something that you wanna have discussions with the involved parties before coming to any determination.
Okay, so we're leaving that open, or are we?
We leave it just like, there's a lot of things left open, like Eric just said.
And don't forget, satisfying the contingencies to the town board's satisfaction is something that's gonna happen over the course of several months.
There's certain things that have to happen, the unions involved, they're involved, they don't, that's in
I just don't think you want to put
negotiations,
yourself
it isn't in
down
the resolution. What you're gonna
So what about?
of this resolution
All right.
to, you know, paying for things where you don't know, where the cards are gonna fall.
So what about the cost that the town's gonna take on to actually negotiate and transfer? Is that something we negotiate?
Yeah, it's something, I don't think the town board has sat down with the hospital administration and come to some agreement about that. I think those are issues that need to be resolved as part of this process.
Mr. Wilben also says that all employees will be hired back in their positions. Is that correct? Is that a correct statement?
Yes, our current intention is to take all current employees, take all their files, take all the material, if the new corporation is established, take all their current files, everybody employed as of the date we convert over, take all their files, take as much from them and put them into new corporations' employee files, and simply have each employee sign their file so that we have a new file for the new corporation. So we intend to take every employee that's on the payroll as of the date we turn over to a new corporation. That's our intention. At their pay rate at that time and their seniority rate, subject to the labor contracts that exist.
One question. You answered that workman's comp question I had in my email. Thank you for that. Should that be part of the resolution? Yeah.
I would defer to your counsel, but I personally would see that as one of those aspects in the set of issues that have to be satisfied. So I don't personally know enough about the law whether that specific item needs to be in the resolution or whether that's on a list of things that when a transfer agreement is negotiated, we make sure we ensure that none of that liability for workers' comp stays at the town, it all moves over to the new corporation. That's commonly what happens when it always moves over, is what I've seen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also a line in the last resolve that all town debt-related MMH has been satisfied, or that the new MMH has developed a plan for satisfaction of MMH debt without requiring contribution from the taxpayers of the town. So I think that is addressed in this resolution.
Thank you.
Just one correction where it says sitting members of the town board as a member, it should be member or members. Just for clarification, that indicates one member.
With, and that third to the last resolution, resolve?
Yeah, the blank line.
Have two sitting member, or the apostrophe S though is.
Yeah, all the town board as a member, should be member or members.
Oh, I see, okay. Should be also be parenthetical S like the first one, yeah. Anything else?
I have some.
Sure, John, go ahead.
Go back to what made me think of something. You mentioned about setting up new files for the employees and those types of things. Our current files such as FOIL. Personnel. No. No. All right.
What about disciplinary action?
Okay. I got the, everybody knows I'm a numbers geek, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. I got the October financial summary here, which will be the last one that we issued. It says the year-to-date loss stands at $52,161, which is under budget. Much better than the October year-to-date loss in 2014 of $3,651,961. So we've had a turnaround in 10 months of $3.1 million. One of the things I studied last month, that 90% of that was from expense cutting, and 10% of it came from improved revenue. So the cut of 50-some employees was almost $2 million of that $3.1 million. Yet, through October, we're still at a loss. So that's very, very important information. We're talking about delaying. We're talking about a lot of things that I know, I've said this over and over. We had a meeting with a consultant back around February or March this year. And at that point in time, we left things the way they were. And I said in that meeting that we weren't taking this off the board, off the table. And that if the hospital board came back to us at some time saying we need to do this, we're not going to have the luxury of waiting any longer. Because we had already, this was brought to us over 2 years ago. With a different CEO, different board members. Now, and a new hospital board CEO that's received enormous acclaim in this community for the last year. He doesn't want to speak for himself. I'll do it. At every board meeting and other functions, he's received a lot of positive feedback from employees, people in the community, everybody. He has now, and the board, come to this board in less than a year since we had that meeting with the consultant, saying this has to happen. I don't know what the discussion you had with Addie Russell, saying that pension payment wasn't even in the top 5, because that doesn't make any sense to me. Because in the last year and a half, we've received over $7 million of state aid, that not a penny of that went towards improving facilities. It all went to pension payment. $7 million of state aid. Now we've had people sit in meetings around Massena, New York, criticizing the Power Authority for not giving us more money than we should be getting, criticizing our legislators for not giving us more money than we should be getting more. We got $7 million in the last year, last December, this December, or actually November, I think. So in less than a year, all of it went to the pension payment. Every penny. Sam made a comment when he was talking to Bob, you got more money than we've got now. They do, because they received $3 million from the state. All of it is going to go later on this month. Every penny of that money is going to go to Albany for the state pension plan. So there is no doubt, I've been on this for all these years. This is my last meeting. We've been talking about this for 3 years. There is no doubt that people are against this only because of the effect on the pension plan.
No.
Go ahead and say it. There is no anecdotal evidence to support anything else that's been said. Every hospital in New York State is a private not-for-profit except for a couple county hospitals. Hospitals around the whole country are that way. Go to U.S. News and World Report and search for the highest quality hospitals in New York State. They are all private not-for-profit hospitals. None of them are public hospitals. So the anecdotal evidence doesn't support anything that's been said in these meetings. Now, I understand the pension question. And Chuck Raytie is exactly right. And again, I might be getting too emotional. He sat in this room 3 years ago and said right to the CACA rep, which you guys weren't here then, you guys got more power to help this pension plan than we do. You need to go to Albany, start something rolling. Nobody did anything. Nobody's done anything for 3 years except criticize this board and the hospital board. Now, when push comes to shove, everybody's got better ideas. Everybody can do something. Why couldn't they have done something before? Why? I guess we had to do it. I guess this board had to do it. We're not affected by your lawsuit, by pension changes. You guys are. But I guess we had to do it for you. No, that's not how it, no.
So why can't we do it now?
Because we don't have any time. I just read to you, we're losing money this year. We would lose $3 million if we didn't have to make the pension payment.
John, I think...
Just a minute, I'm not done.
All right.
You should be.
I am done after this meeting.
Give the guy some respect, will you please?
Thank God.
It's ridiculous. Let the man speak. Don't.
The talk about earlier about taxes is very real. I remember in many, many meetings, because I've been very consistent, saying that I won't be able to be part of this decision, but I as a board member would never approve a tax levy to the town of Massena residents to keep that hospital open. Never. Because we were looking last year of a $4 million loss before we got the money. So we were looking at being in the red January 1st of last year. No cash until we got that money. You can nod your head. You don't have to believe it, but it's the truth. We would not have been able to pay our bills in January 1st of this year if we didn't get $4 million from the state. State bailout people, all you people that are critical of government bailouts, you got one. And you're getting one this year too. So, pardon? Yeah, it kept us open for 2 years, but it's not going to be there forever. If we think that it will be, it's not going to be there forever. More and more money is being taken out of Medicare, out of Medicaid, not going in. It's not going in. It's coming out. So, I'll end. What are we going to do if we don't make this decision to make to where we start turning that number to positive so that we can invest in the hospital?
Public Benefit Corporation.
Public Benefit Corporation will not change the finances.
I believe it'll be.
How will it do it in the next year?
How will the privatization do it in the next year?
By not paying our pension payment next year.
Give up your
So this is about pension.
It's about pension.
Can I respectfully respond, because what you're saying hasn't been accurate.
Stand up and say,
Mr. Ratai knows he collects a public pension. We can't control the cost of that. It's 100%, has to be 100% funded by the state. Now, you know who killed the pension? The private banks.
It doesn't
The private stockholders. They killed the pension.
It doesn't matter.
So you can't blame them for not doing
I'm not
anything.
blaming
You
them.
did. You said, where were you 4 years ago? Fix the pension.
The pension system is broken, quite honestly, and nobody wants to talk about that.
It's not broken.
The fact that 95% of the people in the system don't support it is a problem.
It's going in the right
It's a
direction,
huge
Joe.
problem.
And they have two new tiers that fix
The
that.
private sector's doing well. but
Two new tiers that fix that, Joe.
In
When
20
is the
years,
next
new
recession?
tiers will fix it. 20 years.
Doesn't matter, and I respect your honesty, Mr. McCullough. You just said what we needed to hear. It's about the pensions.
It is.
Thank you. That's honest, and I respect that.
People haven't been saying it. It is.
My understanding, it's not about the pension.
Okay.
I asked Mr. Willeben during the slideshow.
Give me three.
One last comment. One last comment. I was just going to ask, and I was going to ask the assembly person. When is the next recession? I want to know so I can change my investment.
It's been, it never left.
Well, you gone.
Still here, but that money that you reference is money that I fought to ensure went to the vulnerable hospitals in the state. And several in the district that I represent.
I am
To
glad.
give everyone the time that everyone says isn't here to think about things with full heads and make strategic decisions.
Right. And we've done that. We've been doing this for almost 3 years.
We profit. That is an insult to everyone on this board. I resent the chance of no more lies. That is a goddamn lie, that we've been lying about this stuff, and you know it's a lie. We have not been lying about this stuff. It's been very open. So I resent that. There are no surprises here. We've been talking about this for a long time. How many more people at the hospital need to lose their job to keep it public? Those of you who live in the town of Massena, how much more taxes are you willing to pay? Because this year your taxes would have tripled had we had to eat the $3.5 million debt that the hospital had. And here's, I guess, my last point. I've only heard talk about the pension from all sides. I'd like to hear 3 specific reasons supported by evidence of why we should keep this hospital public.
It's not our job. That's
3. 3 of them, that's all. That's all I'm asking for.
I think one of them, you heard everybody here say how good the employees are.
But they're not good at Canton Positive? They're
All
not
the
good at-
employees ask is, give it 6 months. All you gotta do to save it is the same thing with public and private. They're saying, give you 6 months, let the legislator work on it to see if they can get it done. They're asking you, our representatives, to give them 6 months. What difference is 6 months going to make? You wanna raise my taxes $12 a thousand for 6 months? Go ahead. And I'm one of them, I'm not gray, I'm white, okay? So I'm one of them retired guys too. And I draw my full pension. And I just don't see it's right to take it away from somebody else, and if we can keep it. And they're asking for 6 months, that's all they're asking you for. And you can't acknowledge that? Come on.
We've already been discussing it
Come on.
for 3 years. 3 years.
I don't take it back. 3 years. You heard a different story here tonight from my legislature, you heard it from CS.
You, excuse me, but I've been keeping a low profile because I am very both ways. I'm very emotional with this whole thing. When we suggested public benefit, first thing we got was no. We tried it 15 years ago. It was not discussed at all again. So the option to look at for 6 months, to look at that again, that should have been the town's ability to do that. And all you have done is said, 15 years ago it didn't work. But you know what? 15 years ago my budget didn't work either. But where are we at now? We want to see quality care for our patients. But you're not going to get that if we keep losing quality people. How many people have we lost because of the fear of losing our pension? And I'm sorry, when it comes down to pension, yes, it is an option because that's what's been said to us from day one. Our pension is the compensation for our loss of wages, that we are not what they're paying in Ogdensburg or Potsdam or Malone. We have stayed with that as our option. We have done that, but we are not even looking at that. You're talking about, yes, going on to something else, but we have also, you've got to increase what we have in order to get quality people.
No doubt about that.
The nation is not getting quality nurses right now and not maintaining quality nurses because they've lost us. People are willing to retire and do with less because they are tired of having to fight healthcare. They are asking more and more and more of healthcare people, and it is a system that totally sucks to be in. But when you've been in it for 35 years and it has been a passion of your life to take care of people, all we ask is that you take care of us. Thank you.
One last anecdote. I had a discussion with a low seniority professional last week at the hospital. A low seniority. He was begging me to approve the private not-for-profit because he was one of the next guys on the chopping block. And I totally understand the people that 25 to 30 years have interest. But how many people work at the hospital right now with less than 5 years? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you guys aren't even vested if you got less than 5 years. But, huh?
It's 10 years.
Right, say less than 10 years. But you 3 people, I just went through 90% of this last year was cuts in expenses, mostly coming from payroll. You people are pretty much guaranteed to not have a job here pretty soon. At Massena Memorial Hospital.
Wow.
If we don't do something different. Why is it unfair? The data supports that. Okay, tell me it won't. We're losing money this year.
I'm not going to argue with you.
How can you cut when you don't have enough to begin with?
That's a good point. So, how can we continue cutting our way out of this issue? We can't.
I mean, it's not just all about
Bob
pension.
came to us last month saying he wants to grow this business to save jobs, to build jobs, to have more people working, not less. Okay? There's only certain ways we're going to be able to build this business. And the status quo
I think everyone
probably isn't one of them.
Everyone in this room understands the status quo is not going to work. I think we'd all agree with that. I would say the status quo is not going to work, but what we're saying is we have an option here that would allow the best of both worlds. Let's explore it. Now listen, it'll be a lot easier. It'll be a lot easier to look these people in the face 6 months from now if they can't get it done.
Right.
We said that, Lauren.
I understand. I
said that 9 months ago.
I
Those
understand.
exact words.
I understand.
But if this new CEO comes back to us and says, and the new board comes back to us and says, we need to do this, we're not gonna be able to wait.
What everybody's trying to say is, you got the support of the legislator down, trying to do something. The CSEA is gonna come in and try to do something. They're asking for 6 months to do what maybe we should have done a year ago. That's all they're asking.
Okay, we've had a lot of discussion, I'm gonna cut it off here, I'm gonna call for a vote. Do we need to do this by roll call or not?
Can.
And I'm saying we don't have to, if we don't need to. Okay.
This clearly says, this is to start the process, nothing finalized to the transfer agreement,
That's
correct?
exactly what the resolution says, there is not a final transfer of anything. This
So the
says
so the Assemblywoman has time to work.
everybody has time to work.
No. That's it? 6 months? Does it say 6 months?
No, it doesn't say 6 months.
Thank you.
It doesn't say 6 months, does it?
No, everybody has time to work. The hospital's gonna start their work right away with the CON going in. So, but.
Is there gonna be any work with me, or is that not gonna be addressed in the resolution? It'll just be work with the hospital to become a not-for-profit and not work with me on the alternative options. It's not included in there, so I'm going to assume that that's not how the board is gonna proceed to work with me and to explore that. So I just wanna make sure that I'm clear that this resolution will not be asking me to proceed forward with drafting legislation for a public benefit corporation.
Are we opposed to that?
It's not in
Opposed to
there.
what, for working?
Right.
Joe, there's nothing about the resolution that would prohibit.
Stop anything else.
That's right, it's not in there.
That process going forward.
That's kind of my
Bless you.
thought.
I have a question about, now that this is brought up, certificate of need. I don't know if I can find that.
At some point, we need to move on, guys, so.
Well, that's a big decision, Joe.
It's a huge decision, I agree completely.
Mr. Gray.
We're talking about it for 3 years.
Mr. Gray?
I'm not gonna work on it, sorry. No, we're done. We're done with comments, sorry.
I'm not going to make a comment here. I wanted to ask your indulgence. My concern here, as I said, how can we now all work together toward a public benefit corporation if one side is working in a different direction? I mean, I'm sorry, but my idea of everybody coming together and prevailing and under common heads and having truthful discussions and honest and open discussions and doing what it is we need to do is we have to do it together. We can't do that together if the move is to move forward from one end toward a not-for-profit.
We have a motion and a second.
And we're not going to have any input from a critical portion of the, it doesn't make any sense. Then it needs to go to the town for a vote. If that's where they're headed.
The motion has 2 amendments, 3 amendments. One is to add an S to the third from last resolve. One is to add 2 board members to 2, town board members to 2. We're gonna keep that the way it is. And we're gonna add the full-time equivalents after the 345 in the last resolve. So this resolution with those 3 amendments is what we're gonna vote on.
I have a question about this certificate of need and the, as soon as practical. What's the determination on that? When is that gonna be? If we file that certificate of need, once you're locked into that, how, can that be reversed, or is it, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, what's
The certificate of need requires filing of an application. The rules are very specific. We have not identified under which provision of the certificate of need criteria we would have to file. We would go down and meet with the Department of Health staff, talk about their view, given their experience with Clifton Fine Hospital, which is the last hospital that did this, as to which provision of the certificate of need statute we file under. And then we would proceed to file. Depending on which level, which portion of the statute you file under, there are public comment periods, notice periods, and those kinds of things that are available to all the way up to and including the State Health Planning Council. So that is a public process.
How soon will you start that?
We will be if this resolution passes tonight, we would call the Department of Health tomorrow to schedule an appointment to go down to talk to them about what section of the CON statute, we would file it.
What's the normal lead time on approval of a CON?
They really vary. I will tell you that there was a local CON submitted that could have been approved in 30 days. That has been stopped for different reasons. So, but the typical CON takes 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
For 4 to 6 months, and my understanding is a public benefit corporation doesn't require a CON, is that correct?
The change in ownership requires a CON.
That's not the language that I heard, but,
Well,
okay.
That's in the statute.
Okay. All right. You have the resolution, you've got the changes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Abstentions, none, there's apparently none. Motion passes. I want to take a 5-minute adjournment. Somebody open a window, will you? It's hotter than hell in here.
December 15th, 16th, you were saying that? Don't complain.
2 hours.
I want to show that 80 years old and lost